Morning class. Today we're going to do a chapter called The Glimpses of India. Through this chapter, you would know the heritage of the country. Also, it will enrich your vocabulary. The first part of this chapter is a baker from Goa. In this part, the author displays the importance of bakers in the contemporary society. The author talks about how elders fondly think of the good old days when Goa was still under a Portuguese colony. The Portuguese bakers and their famous loaves were loved by one and all. Roderick says that even though the eater of a loaf, that is Portuguese, have left, the makers are still there. The time-tested furnaces have not lost their flames, says the author. He says that the tug and the jingle of the traditional baker's bamboo announcing the baker's arrival can still be heard in some parts of Goa. The loaves were bought by some Baskins and Bastines, the maidservants of the house. The author then describes the musical entry of the baker with a chung-chung sound from his specially made bamboo staff. The baker would support the basket with his head, with his hand, and the other bang the bamboo on the ground. The author is reminded of his childhood in Goa, when the baker used to be their friend, champion and guide. The baker used to come at least twice a day. The author says that the tug of the baker's bamboo basket would wake them up, and they would run to meet and greet the baker. The author says that it was not for the love of loaves that they ran to meet the baker, rather it was the baker's bangles that they longed for. The baker would greet the lady of the house with good morning, and then place his basket on the vertical bamboo. The children of the house were then pushed aside, and with a mild rebuke, and the loaves were then given to the servant of the house. The children, unwilling to give up, would climb on the bench or the parapets to somehow peep into the baker's basket. The author still remembers the fragrance of the fresh loaves. The loaves were for the adults and the bangles for the children. After the baker's visit, the author says that they would not bother to even brush their teeth or wash their mouth properly. They did not want to take the trouble of plucking a mango leaf for a toothbrush. The author goes on to say that never once do the tigers brush their teeth, and after all, a hot chai could hand and clean up everything so nicely. The author says that marriage gifts without sweet bread, known as bones, are as meaningless as the feast without bread. The author falls short of words to emphasize the importance of baker in a village. The author says that the lady of the house must prepare sandwiches for their daughter's engagement. Cakes are necessary for Christmas as well as the other festivals. Thus, a baker's furnace was absolutely essential. The baker back in those days wore a dress known as kabai, long frock reaching to the knees. When the author was a child, he also saw bakers who wore shirts and pants which reached just below their knees. The baker collected his bill after the end of each month. The account was recorded on the wall in pencil. The author says that baking was a profitable business, and the baker and his family they never starved. Their plump physique was a testimony to